these together, commit them, and then if I needed to, I can always like go back to this. Yeah, I can go back to this, find something that is better.
Like that part of Logic.
Yeah, it's honestly great. Okay, so this vocal. And this one I kind of want it to be a little bit more crunchy on the top end and not as smooth, just to have the appearance that it is louder than it actually is, just by perceived volume, really. So and this is kind of similar thing as the last one too, where I only had one lead vocal and there were no dubs. So I'm just trying to make it work with what I have. So this is just like, you know, filtering out low end that is unnecessary. This one I was like compressing a good amount. De-esser, like this, my regular thing. Some SSL, except this one I had a lot of compression happening on the SSL. Take slow attack, yeah. This one I used the RVox again, except I was compressing a lot here. Just for like that body. This one I used the SPL vitalizer, and this one I kind of made it like I used the compressor on it, and it just like it just makes it like brighter and just more in your face. I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on Gary Payton. I ain't gonna ventilate it, see y'all gon' ball, but y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. Change that's de-esser. I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on Gary Payton. I ain't gonna ventilate it, see y'all gon' ball, but y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. API 560. I'm a rock star like Van. So this one I actually wanted to bring up some of the mid range and the low end. And then I boosted up 15K, or is that 16? Yeah, 16K a little bit. I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on Gary Payton. I ain't gonna ventilate it, see y'all gon' ball, but y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. Change like spaghetti. And then I use like a multiband, the Q3. I'm a rock star just for some of the parts I didn't like. I ain't gon' ventilate it, see y'all gon' ball, but y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. Change like spaghetti and baguettes, yeah. My bird is like Ed, Ed, and Eddie, yeah. Hollywood hoes so petty. And then use the room reverb from Valhalla. H delay. These are just like standard in my template. I'll have this as like a quarter note. This is usually like an eighth note. I always have a double or two in my template if I need. So with this one, I parallel compress it. So there's a lot going to all the buses that I have, but then the upfront vocal will be the parallel compression, which is I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on Gary Payton. I ain't gonna ventilate it, see y'all gon' ball. So it just makes it like right in your face. So yeah, I'm a rock star like Van Halen. I'm just like squashing the shit out of it, and I'll use a Pultec, and I'll boost like, you know, around like 6 to 8K. I mean, sorry, 12K at like, you know, 8 decibels, a little bit of bandwidth. I'll use de-esser on it, and then I don't know why I put a Pro G on here, but I did. But sometimes I'll use like an L1 or a vintage exciter if I want like more on that top end to make it like crunchier. I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on. So that's pretty much like the basis of the vocal, and then there's like a double or two on it. I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on Gary Payton. I ain't gonna ventilate it. Yeah, sorry, the double or two. I always take out the middle. Just boost up the wides as wide as they go. The high boost that's normally on there. Yeah. This one I put an H delay with a Valhalla and a flanger on it. Let's see what that sounds like. 16th note, ping pong, just filtered it. This is, and then I use a long reverb from Vintage Verb. with a little bit of pre-delay, just so it's still a little detached from the main vocal with some filtering going on. And this one I tried to just make it as big as possible with only having one sound source, really. I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on Gary Payton. I ain't gon' ventilate it, see y'all gon' ball, but y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. Chains like spaghetti and baguette, yeah. My bird is like Ed and Eddie, yeah. Hollywood hoes so petty. Y'all way too friendly, yeah. I'm a rock star like Van Halen. So this is
like just taking the parallel out.
Totally. So with it, with that. So all the processing and all the effects are going from the original sound source, and then I like to have the parallel just completely disconnected from all that.
Right. So no, right. I understand. The main dry vocal, just
exactly. Yeah.
I'm a rock star like Van Halen, smoking on Gary Payton. I ain't gon' ventilate.
Guitars from Adriano. This one, a little bit of filtering, some retro color, which I added like distortion and filtering to it also. Then more EQ. Valhalla. And then the wider plugin again. And then it's also going through my group too, which I have another retro color. So just to make it a little bit more fucked up. I added like a little bit of the space reverb from here. And I love the distortion. It sounds great. It just adds like that like texture to it. Then I use like a Q3 for some multiband. And then the R compressor with like really slow attack and release, just so I can still get that transient. And it's not doing too much, but yeah, definitely. That I don't think I even like thought about. It was more of just like.
It sounded great when you put it in there,
and then this is just like a second layer.
Spaghetti and baguette, yeah. My bird is like Ed and Eddie, yeah. Hollywood hoes so petty.
For the 808. This is like a Zay 808, which has like a lot of punch. Just like sounds great on rap records. And I love the classic clipper from IK Multimedia. Just adds more punch. And then just a little bit of EQ where like my kick was gonna be, and some filtering on 20 below because you don't need it. Some hot top end. I think I was playing around with different, things like a Pultec, but I didn't end up using any of it. Sometimes I like to sidechain my kick to the 808, but it just took out all the punch, so I didn't. Clap, just LA2A on the clap. And I like boost up some of this mid-range just so it's not so like tinny. And then I made it a little wide for some reason. Yeah. The kick, LA2A, just to give it some more punch. I used this to take out a lot of the sustain and more attack. And then I paralleled it with this SSL. Took out, put it at 30, like the cross-side. I think Jason Joshua uses like the cross-side or something, and I just really liked it. Then I took out all the low end, added like some more high ends, and then I used an L2 to just bring it up. So I'll play what that sounds like.
Rise.
So just like a little bit more top end, because if you're listening on like laptop speakers and whatever, wherever else, you might not hear it. So it's a little punchy. Yeah. Then just snare. No processing on the snare. And this I probably just filtered out from low end. Yeah. And I like doing the drag and drop feature, like just drag and dropping the samples and just like creating like the rolls if I need to, and it just feels better to me for some reason.
Versus using like battery
or just MIDI in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like how I've done it since the beginning. And actually, no, I started using MIDI, but switch to this, yeah, probably in 2017 or 18. And I like having control over like my hi-hats are all like rolls or panned different ways and affected differently. Totally. And then I use like a de-esser just so it's get rid of some of the attack. Yeah. So like for like the really loud ones, I want to still be present but not covering the vocal. Exactly. So like. And then there's like this hat has a flanger on it, just cause. Like the steady one, instead of just having it steady, I like to just like do something weird with it.
But y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. Chains like spaghetti and baguette, yeah. My bird is like Hayden and Eddie, yeah. Hollywood hoes so petty. Y'all way too fatty.
And then also my friend Mason actually added these acoustic guitars to just spice up the second half of the chorus, make it feel bigger.
Chains like spaghetti and baguette, yeah. My bird is like Hayden and Eddie, yeah. Hollywood hoes so petty. Y'all way too fatty. Drums in the club like a rock band. Oh God, I can never shake the offset. All tops, I'ma end up in the top 10. Through where the ghost go when it go.
And then like verse vocals are pretty much the same processing, just without all the extra effects and stuff, just so I can, you know, add some dynamics to the song.
Big drums in the club like a rock band. Oh God, I can never shake the offset. All tops, I'ma end up in the top 10. Through where the ghost go when the Glock jam.
These are like the comps. He didn't do like too many takes. But it just worked out.
Big drums in the club like a rock band. Oh God, I can never shake the offset.
Some doubles. This I added pretty much, I think, same processing, except just a little bit of reverb, and then an S1 in the group just to like separate it from the lead vocal. Oh, and then I'll show you my vocal group.
Y'all way too fatty. Big drums in the club like a rock band.
So this, I love the Kramer PIE for vocals. I'll use it on drums a lot of times too. It just like adds so much to it. And a little bit of compression, not much.
Y'all way too fatty. Big drums in the club like a rock band. Oh God, I can never shake the.
So this is the bus
EQ. I'ma end up in the top 10. Through where the ghost gone when the Glock jam. Bro's cooking in the pot like Gordon Ramsay. She was playing with her nose in the mansion. Shawty always wildin' out like Nick Cannon. Made a bitch do the drill, Charles Manson. Can't trust none of these bitches.
And then the Kramer PIE.
Y'all way too fatty. Big drums in the club like a rock band. Oh God, I can never shake the offset. All tops, I'ma end up in the top 10. Through where the ghost gone when the Glock jam.
It just makes it a little bit more present, like just glued together. And then I did a little bit of limiting on it.
Y'all way too fatty. Big drums in the club like a rock band. Oh God, I can never shake the offset. All tops, I'ma end up in the top.
Just super slight processing, just to not like ruin it, but still give it the effect that it's just like up front in your face. and kind of like above the instrumental essentially.
Like a rock band. Oh God, I can never shake the oxen. Off top, I'ma end up in the top 10. Through where the ghost gun when the Glock jam. Bros she was playing with a nose in the mansion. Shawty always wide out like that. Made a bitch do the drill, Charles Manson. Can't trust none of these bitches cause they be lying like Pinocchio. When he talks some ducking, I took a flight to San Antonio. Blacked out 10 with white rims, that's the Oreo. Never took my foot up on the gas, I got more to go. Drink out the bottle, fuck the red cup. Scream murder, 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 red rum. I got the spotlight, fuck who next.
Oh, so this is like the Omnisphere pad I was saying before. I'd rather remove bass, yeah. And it's just like super like thick and fat. And I didn't have any additional processing, it just felt right.
Yeah, mama, ever took my foot up on the gas, I got more to go. Drink out the bottle, fuck the red cup. Scream murder, 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 red rum. I got the spotlight, fuck who next up. You look at your son, yeah. Mama, I'm a rock star like that. Smoking on every pain. I ain't gon' ventilate it, see y'all gon' ball.
Whatchamacallit? There's like a delay throw. And sometimes I'll do like I'll put a doubler on my delay throw just to separate it even more from the lead, and it just sounds cool. Sometimes I'll add a reverb to it if I feel like it's necessary, but this one wasn't supposed to be a moment, just like an effect. And then a lot of times what I like to do is like the second time a chorus comes around, and if it's all the same production, I'll take a stem or one of the instruments and just like pitch it up 12, and then I'll affect it with some retro color. This one I did some distortion from retro color, took out all the low and the high end. Didn't do anything with this. Some soothe, Valhalla, and more filtering, and then I just made it wide, and it really is not supposed to be audible, it's just supposed to feel like it's bigger. Just adds to that high end. Yeah, definitely. And that's really the only difference between this chorus and the last chorus, but for some reason it just feels a bit bigger.
I'm a rock star like that. Smoking on dairy pain. I ain't gon' ventilate it. See y'all gon' ball, but y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. Chains like spaghetti and baguetti, yeah. My bird is like Eddie, yeah. Hollywood hoes so petty.
And then this little like transition.
No black side, y'all way too friendly, yeah. I'm paranoid, no black side. She wanna put me on the list, no chassis. 20 bad stuff in the mattress. 21 hoes, no savage.
So this verse we recorded like months after we already started the song, and I definitely wanted to have a little bit more vocals than all the other sections, just so it feels like it's getting bigger at some point, where we added
paranoid, no black side. She wanna put me on the list, no chassis. 20 bad stuff in the mattress, yeah. 20.
Like this ad-lib was going through a flanger and a doubler.
20 bad stuff in the mattress.
I think this one might have been 2. Yeah.
Mattress. 21 no savage,
just to make it interesting.
I'm paranoid, no black side. She wanna put me on the list, no chassis. 20 bad stuff in the mattress, yeah. 21 hoes, no savage. If we go to the crib and it's a party, then I'm jumping off the table, Jeff Hardy.
And I also ran into an issue too. We rented gear from Capitol Audio, and there was like clicks and pops throughout, and until way after we were tracking, and it's really hard to get an artist to come back in and do exactly what they did. And I tried declicker from Isotope, yeah, and I was using it for a while. I had it on, and then I realized like it was doing something to the vocals that I didn't like. Yeah, like something weird. So I was like, honestly, I'm just gonna leave it, Yeah. And if I'm soloing it, you can hear it, but if I'm not, you don't really. Yeah, you can't really tell. But that was something I was like, fuck, dude, I was pissed. And like I didn't tell like his team or anyone, and I'm sure they wouldn't have even noticed anyway. Because most people don't. It's just it's so tiny, but yeah.
Drink out the bottle for the red cup. Scream murder, 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 red rum. I got a spotlight for who next up. You did right, look at your son, yeah.
And this probably addictive drummer, yeah. This like little like a weird transition. Yeah. Just to go into this last hook, and then that last hook introduced like this electric guitar.
Kind of introduces those rock elements as it's Van Halen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we used to have a crazy guitar solo in here, and last minute they wanted to take it out, and I was like, damn, no way. Like it sounded crazy, you know, and I loved it. Yeah. Let me see. Actually, I'll. It's in a different alternative, and I'll go back to that.
Yeah, right, look at your son, yeah. I'm a rock star like Van Halen. Smoking on Gary Payne. I ain't gon' ventilate it. See y'all gon' ball, but y'all ain't gon' ball like Hayden. Change like spaghetti and spaghetti, yeah. My bird is like Hayden and Eddie, yeah. Hollywood hoes so petty. Y'all way too friendly, yeah.
And this vocal was just running through guitar rig.
My mama rock star like Van Halen.
So that was like the base of it. Then ran it through this.
My mama rock star like Van Halen.
I think this might have just been a preset that I liked, and then I just tweaked and brought down some of the wet because it was just like fucking crazy. A little EQ.
My mama rock star like Van Halen.
Put a doubler on it.
My mama rock star like Van Halen. My mama rock star like Van Halen.
A tremolo. So I think it's pretty much going from like left to right, which is cool. And then 16th note delay. Just like really like fucking it up. Let me see if I can find performance.
That other guitar solo is pretty subtle.
Yeah, that was so that was supposed to be like a lead up into like a solo and have this moment. But some people don't want to listen to a song long enough. You know,
Get there.
Yeah.
Is that why they wanted to get rid of it?
I think so, yeah, just to make it shorter. And I tried to figure out a way to add a solo into vocals, but it was just like too much. This might be the version. My friend Mason is crazy good, like super talented musician. Whenever I extra guitars, and he's super versatile, so he'll do R&B, he'll do classical.
And honestly, like right now with kind of the ebb and flow of popularity of guitar, you know, integration, any song in this sphere that would include a solo like that, I think would be really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree, and it definitely called for it, so I was disappointed, but yeah. Let's see.
You guys do that one from scratch, or you had that starter when you pulled up? Or?
Yeah, so me and Adriano got in. We're always, whenever, because he's from Toronto, so whenever he's in, we'll just cook up a bunch of random ideas. And this one was one that we knew Hayden would like, and we knew we had a session coming up. So it was the first one we played for him. Actually, no, it's not. When we linked up with Hayden, we did a totally different song, and then pulled up this loop, and then we recorded it. And then Hayden, you know, lives really close, and we're really tight, so I was able to just like get back in with him and Adriano and build up the production some more after vocals were, you know, recorded. And this one was more of a back and forth where he would come over and just listen to me do production work, and then be like, I like this, I don't like this, and then we would schedule a session just to do vocal work. So it was really cool. One of the last things we added was the solo, which was this.
You're way too funny,
So I just let him like shred. And he did like a few different takes, and I kind of just like put together like 3 of the takes. Like essentially like this was kind of under here, and I was like, let's just let it continue. And this was just guitar rig with, for some reason I put a compressor on it, and these frequencies were going crazy. Yeah. Some Valhalla, and then I put a doubler 4 on it, and I just kind of made it like really wide and deep. And I want it to be like, if you're listening on headphones, it's like not too bare, like up front, but it's just like takes a lot of space.
DI or did he amp that?
No, that was DI. Yeah, straight into an Apollo with guitar rig.
you're way too funny,
Then I had like some transitions, like a car just passing by. Instead of white noise, you know.
you're way too funny,
Yeah, so that's pretty much the process of this record. This was definitely like really fun to work on because it was just like cool, and I love doing rap, and I don't get to do it enough.
Yeah.
So when I work with Hayden, I'm like, let's just do something that I love, you know.
How long did this track take from like start to finish? Like how many days?
I think we did like 10 to 12 sessions. And I probably spent like 4-ish months on it, I would say. No, actually, no, that's a complete lie. Maybe like 6 months. But not consecutively working. It would be like we would do a session, and then I would spend like 2 or 3 days afterwards, like really cleaning it up and making sure like I did a bunch of different versions of the comps and fixing up any parts of the melody that needed to be worked on, or like replaying guitars. And we did like a few different days of finding out what additional guitars to be added, which is when we came up with this one. And it's not a focal point, but it's just to add body to the second half of hooks. We also did that on the verse, but just like different processing. And I think this was just iPhone recording. Which like a lot of the guitars or acoustic guitars that I will do will be iPhone, just because I've gotten so used to the process of like, here, just do it real quick, you know. And then just like taking out some low end, some like weird squeak that he had going on. LA2A. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, LA2A. And then retro color. Yeah, I tend to use like similar things throughout, just so that there's like,
it's not coloring it a different way, like midway through the track or something.
Yeah, definitely. So it all sounds cohesive, just like leveled differently. Like it's playing the same thing, but now that we're in verse, I wanted to have the same effect, but just quieter. And also like use what you like. I like to use what I know, and retro color will, give me everything that I want it to. If if I want to add it to an 808, you know, I'll use the distortion on it. This one looks like on the 808 I actually sidechained it to the kick. Jeez Christ.
Y'all gon' ball, try gon' ball like Hayden. Chains like spaghetti and baguette, yeah. My bird is like Hayden and Eddie, yeah. Hollywood.
And it probably wouldn't have made that much of a difference if I didn't, but at this time I probably was always doing it. Just like habits.
Right. I mean, that kind of style, I often heard when I was first starting to do that, they're always like side chain kick.
Yeah.
But it's like that's not an official process. It's more just like what people did.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes I will do it if it's just like a regular sine bass, because there's no attack in it, and then the kick will have all of the attack and punch.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Are there any like questions or?
Do you ever like when you're working 6 months on a song? You remember like at the end of the 6 months, like damn, this is like want to make all these changes, and you get tired of it, or is it like?
No, if I really like the song, I won't get tired of it. But it's one of those things I was saying earlier where I have to like step away from it for a bit to even hear if there's more changes that are necessary.
And is it just like the process of getting it to the label and everything? Because I imagine like recording the song, doing everything, you'd be so hyped to release it, but I imagine it's a lot of steps it takes to get it out. But
yeah, I feel like with Hayden and his team specifically, they like we've been working for a long time, so they won't have as many notes or changes that they need. Whereas if I'm working with an artist I'm not that familiar with their team, they'll really be vocal on what they want. And I think they like just trust my judgment and the way I interact with Hayden and making sure that he's happy with how it is, and if he's happy, the label's happy. Really, as long as it's not anything like too crazy where they're like, "Are you sure about this?" You know, they don't really question too much, and they let me do what I need to do. And sometimes they'll feel like the record's finished, and I'm like, "No, it's not. Just wait." You know, like I need like another week or so. And they've been like really patient with me, and it's like a really good working relationship, which is always great. And I've spent a ton of time with like Hayden, his A&R, Jordan, who became a good friend of mine, his creative director, videographers, and we spent like a week or so at Montecito in some Airbnb, and we had like a U87 with 1073 to CL1B, and there was one bedroom that had a really heavy curtain, and next to the curtain was the window, but the window was also treated. And I was like, this is the booth. And so we kind of made that the booth. Yeah, and it was cool because it actually worked out really well. And the ceiling was kind of like this material, I would say, but something different. So it wasn't that reflective. So it just worked out. So I was able to redo a bunch of vocals and or change stuff, and I wasn't worried that it was going to sound shitty, you know, which was cool. And I just had I had a small pair of Adams. I had I had those. Was it those? Something small that we have at the cabin, the smaller A series, like a 5-inch. I was able to just like bring it with me, and they just worked out perfectly. Yeah, I'm trying to think about.
I remember you mentioned that you go to like a random Airbnb with like Lil Nas X to take a day trip.
Yeah.
You do that with a lot of the artists you work with, like
not
get out of our normal spaces and.
Not typically, because I like to have a setup where I like know where everything is, and if there's an issue, I pretty much will know where the issue is coming from. And if you're going to a ton of different spaces, you know, if there's an issue, it might take you way longer to figure out the issue. But with Nas, it was more of just finding different vibes and energies, and we didn't have like our own studio at the time, so we just flew out all of our gear from New York and things that we had out here, and would make makeshift studios in different houses for different like energies. And some had pools, some were just like really old, and which gave, it was kind of scary. Like one of these houses was just like really old, and there were like squirrels that would always be on the roof, and we'd be like, what the hell is that, you know, at like 12 at night. Or even like sometimes like all those things would, you know, get into the microphone and like creaking from like people being upstairs. So we eventually got a whisper room to like try to fix that problem, but then it would get too hot in the whisper room. Like there's so much shit going on. It was crazy. And it always tended, like the living room always ended up being where the studio was, no matter what house we were in. It was really cool. But I do like working like that, sometimes only to like build relationships with whoever you're working with. Yeah, definitely. Like with Hayden, we were all sleeping there, and we would wake up, grab coffee, you know, do whatever, and then get started at like 1 o'clock. So we would have the day to kind of go over what we wanted to accomplish and, you know, just bullshit, and then get to business, and then have dinner, then go back. And it was never like, you know, I'm always down to like keep going. And, you know, sometimes you're in a session, if it's running too long, you'll get like tired and be like, all right, I need a break. But I never felt that way. In this, where when we were doing Nas, it was easy to like, all right, I'm engineering now. Okay, like let's have Denzel engineer now, or like go back and forth, and one would be on the computer, one would be on like the preamp compressor, just like making sure like we're all good there. Because sometimes if you're like engineering for too long and you have to pay attention over here too, you'll like forget to change the settings. So it was always nice to have someone else. And also like if we're doing like melody takes and one was good, and like if I'm like too zoned in, someone would be like, yo, like mark that, you know. Just like to have like checks and balances and shit, which is definitely really nice.
Were you guys like pretty organized during those sessions, or was it like were you taking notes and like, all right, this song is, we've got X amount done here, or did you just kind of keep going back to things?
Yeah, I love to have like this up. So like I'll have like cleaned up hook, or you know, just any type of notes. Need to commit verse, like tune vocals, work on live drums, smooth out transitions, you know, just anything. So a lot of times I'll have like dates of when I did something or whatever, and then I can remember, because it's really hard to remember if you're bringing up a session multiple times a week, or, you know, months, just to keep track of stuff. And I would have like notes per alternative within the session. So if it's like a melody run session, I'll be like, melody run, like these times are where we marked, you know, just to make sure that we remember things. This one I had like a ton of different alternatives, and not that many notes for myself, or something where I might have used my phone for notes. But I like to have it all like within the same, you know, to be like cohesive and just tidy, I guess.
Do they want you to do like a different mix for the TikTok version, like more optimized for like phone speakers?
No, this one was really just after it was already mixed, just to take out the first verse.
I gotcha.
And make it shorter. This was like TV track for like to edit out curses and stuff like that. Yeah.
Is there like a set amount of different mixes you do for every single track? Like, do you do a TV, like a main mix, TV track, TikTok track now? Like, is there just a set of things you always have to do?
Yeah, you always have to do an instrumental mix, always vocal mix. Performance tracks are like, I'll leave all the dubs in ad-libs, but I'll either take out the lead or lower it, depending on how the artist wants to perform. This is the only time I've ever done like a TikTok version, but I didn't do anything other than the arrangement. But yeah, all those different like mix versions are pretty standard for different things. And then they want, you know, print stems in case there's like a sync, and then they only want a vocal or only the main melody, you know, whatever the case is. So that's pretty standard, I would say. Or sometimes in the performance mix, I'll just like boost up the kick in 808 just so it like hits. And if they're like performing before or after someone, I try to have it louder, you know, if possible. Yeah, it's always, yeah, I feel like Logic is pretty good at like keeping things organized and having like these track alternatives. And so I'm always doing alternatives so that I don't ever.
You're not painting yourself in the corner.
Yeah,
This is all I got.
exactly. Or if I needed to do doubles, I could always add doubles and not have the person come back in the room. And most likely, I'll have someone do a ton of takes just for that purpose, because if they come back, they might not sound the same. And even though it's a double, sometimes I like to have it sound like they did it all at once, which is really cool. Or just like in a second chorus, if I wanted it to sound like they sang it a different way, I could find a different comp. Just like little tricks, because sometimes it's like really hard to get someone to come back in to do anything.
Just scheduling and everything.
Yeah, 100%. Or some people are like on the road and I'm like, oh shit. Or there's been a time where I like sang backgrounds, you know.
Yeah, just to fill it up.
Yeah. Which I don't like to do, but if it's necessary, I will, because I hate the sound of my own voice. Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, you were there when I was doing that. Yeah. Which is funny, yeah. Don't ever catch me singing, because
And I'll be listening for it. I'll be like, all right.
No, you got a solo right now.
Yeah.
I think that's all of us though. Like, yeah, for background stuff, I mean that's cool, but it's sick though.
Yeah, totally. Is there any questions or comments or concern?
I don't know if you answered it when I was out of the room or somebody asked this, but you know, you made the comment that you only had a single vocal to work with, though, you know, double. So like typically, would you do stack 2 takes always, or?
Yeah, I mean it depends. I like to do 4, and I'll just like have it like kind of low penned, you know, 25 25 60 60 or 30 30 60 60. Just for like depth, and I tend to not make them that loud, just so it appears to be louder or something's happening, without really like being too distracting.
Do
But
you
yeah,
use a vocal line for lining those up, or?
I do use vocal line, but I like to do it by hand and then I'll use vocal line, because sometimes,
But prep it first so it doesn't like misjudge it or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Or sometimes if by hand sounds great, I'll just leave it just so it's not too perfect. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I will, but I've always been used to by hand. So,
I was gonna say, like, it feels like I'm looking at a similar session, because like especially the way that you know do align all your beats and samples and everything is my workflow, because working through MIDI, just I'm constantly looking for things that all look similar.
Yeah.
Where this is just very visual. It's just
Definitely.
kind of clarifies
things. Yeah, for sure. There's not like too many tracks in this one, but
like splitting the hats and everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives you more control if you want to mess with the pitch or whatever. Like.
Yeah, totally. Like I love how I can just go option up or down if I want to transpose.
Yeah.
Which is great. Or even like nudging back, just option left or right. And yeah, MIDI is just like, it definitely works, and I will use the step sequencer sometimes, but it's rare that I will. I feel like this has just been my workflow, and it's like hard to change. Yeah.
Do you have templates for mixing or producing, and and if so, what are those templates?
Yeah, I'll pull it up. So this is just like what I've been using now. And then once I add more synths, I'll add to my template. So it's pretty much like vocal bus, so it'll just be like lead vocal. And typically when I'm like tracking, I'll just have like this doing nothing, auto tune, my LA2A, and then de-esser, and then I'll have like my room reverb, and then I always like to have a EQ with every bus just in case I need. So this will be like a quarter note delay, eighth note delay, doubler 2, doubler 4, parallel compression, and then like a lexicon plate, which is one that I really love, which I used to use a ton, and then I stopped once I got vintage verb, and now it's like, okay, I need to like do something different. And then I'll have like my Beatmaster. So like this is if I want a VST. I don't know why this is here. This should be here. Quick sampler, which is really for like 808s. And then I'll have like my Juno, my Prophet, and my Sub Fatty all going through my Beatmaster. And that's literally all I'll use. And even if I'm getting a project in that I didn't mix, that I didn't produce, sorry. I'll just like load up all the stems, and then I'll just have them routed to my all vocals and then Beatmaster. And then if there's like drums, then I'll separate all the drums, put them in their own groups, and so on. I try to like keep it as blank as possible so that I don't do the same things too often. But this is cool to just like already get it going. And like I have all like my inputs, like 7/8 is where my Juno is, 5/6, and 4 is the Sub Fatty. And then I'll like play something on the Juno, and then if I want to do it again, or not do it again, just add another layer, I'll just duplicate. And then I'll have like my master, which is really only ever in L2. And it's so funny, I like have these settings, and for some reason, whenever I saved my template, this is what it was, but I always go like this instead of just changing my template to like
just always.
So I'm just so used to doing that. It's really funny. Or even this, like sometimes I don't even use all of these, and for some reason they're always just on. Just like little weird,
Can't be perfect.
Yeah.
You said you had like a collective with like your guy in Ontario, all that stuff. How did that form? Because like we've actually got a couple guys in here we're doing like a collective kind of similar.
Yeah, so my friends day trip, they were the first like producers I really met in the industry through my friend Janai, who I went to college with. And so my friend Janai was working with them. He's another great producer, mixer. And so he left school and I was still in school. So he started working with them. And as time went on, he was like, yo, you should come to the studio. I'm working with these guys. And so I, got introduced to them. And then, a few months later, they asked me if I wanted to engineer for them. So when I left school, I would go to Manhattan and I would work with them. And then they had this idea of creating a collective called No Idol, which is what our label is called now. And it's with Universal. And so we were calling ourselves No Idol before it was really official. And after they had some success and the label gained interest into like what we were doing, and then we would have A&Rs come by and just listen to everyone. And so then, after like a year or two of just, the label knowing about who we were, they eventually started their JV officially with Universal, and I was the first producer signed to that collective. And then that was in 2019, and then from there we started working with Adriano, who's from Toronto, and I'm not really that sure how they found out about him. It might have been a record or so. He did do a record with oh man, I'm forgetting his name. Don't remember, but it was just a guy that he worked with all the time. A song blew up. They were like, oh, who produced it? It was him. They contacted him, and we, went from the first time I met him, we got like really close. And Adriano is actually the one who introduced me to Hayden, because he was doing a session, but he can't he's not great at engineering vocals, so they needed someone, and it happened to be me. And then we just did a ton of records with him. And then I started to continue with Hayden when Adriano would go back to Toronto. Then we would send files back and forth. And then my friend Veronica, who I've known since like 2014 from back home, I introduced her to Day Trip, and they really liked what she was doing. So she ended up getting a deal there a few years later. And then it's just like, through, mutual friends really. And it's really cool because everyone is great at what they do. And then the collaboration is just like effortless. And my friend 18, who lives in Australia, him and his buddy Len 20 are like almost a duo, but their own separate identities. And my friend 18 was hitting up Day Trip for a long time on DM, and one day David listened to the things that he was sending and was like, holy crap, this guy's crazy talented. And then a year later he came to LA to meet with all of us, and we were just blown away by everything he had. And so he came on board. So it's really just like trial and error and like a learning process and finding out like who fits well, because it's all about like chemistry and shit, and who you would want in a session for what purpose and whatever. And I just feel like it's better to be, with people that you're, you make, the chemistry, different influences, different backgrounds, stuff like that, which is cool. Yeah, because I came from like recording in my bedroom, and I was the only producer, and it would be all these artists. So after a while, I would just be like super drained and uninspired because I wasn't really collaborating with producers, so I wasn't learning much, and stuff. So then being around producers who were like advanced in like other aspects, it's like holy shit, that's crazy.
Really like learn from each other and inspire each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's super fun.
That's sick.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Trying to think.
I think we should probably start loading out. That's tight.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude.
yeah, hell yeah.
Thanks for doing
Cool.
this, man.
Absolutely. No, thank you guys.
Feeling VK is gonna kick us out soon.
Yeah.